All right, Shalom. First off, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem Kakadash. I want to give double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and elders of Great Millstone, and a sincere Shalom to all the Akim out here that's doing and pushing his word in truth and in sincerity. I want to go on in this video of, what laws in the Bible still apply, okay? And the commonwealth of the Israelites, okay? So when we go into, the question, I asked ChatGPT, right? Christians think the laws were done away with, but the Lord changed the law on multiple wives and opened the door for the LGBTQ community, okay? And even some some Israelites, even say that, the multiple wives, is like a thing in the past, but it's going to come back in the future. While we in the land of captivity, we got to follow the laws of the land. And it's like, where is that in the Bible? Where in the Bible does it say, when you go into the captivity, that you must forget your laws? Okay? Because, when it comes down to, multiple wives, for example, okay, there are laws in the Bible on how, a man's supposed to conduct himself, with multiple wives, okay? If a man has a wife, okay, that's hated, right? But she has, the firstborn son, for example, right? The father, cannot, and let's say he has another wife that he loves, but he has a child from this woman, he has a second child, right? He can't, just shun the firstborn, okay, from the inheritance, okay? That's the law, okay? But, it says, when if a man take on another wife, okay, food, right, or raiment, duty of marriage, so he not diminished, okay? So, there are laws that are inside of the Bible on how a man is supposed to deal with, multiple wives and children as well, multiple children as well, okay? But it says, many Christians would say the issue is not the law was completely abolished, but that the relationship between believers and the Mosaic law changed after the coming of Yahweh Shah. Okay, different Christian traditions, right? And that's a fault right there, because the scripture says that it's only one God, one Lord, one faith, one baptism. Okay, so why is all these different, ideologies and different beliefs? There's only one belief, okay? It says different Christian traditions interpret that differently, which is why there are disagreements on polygyny, dietary laws, Sabbath keeping, sexuality, circumcision, etc. Right? You even got the the Mormons, right? Don't they have multiple wives, right? The Jehovah's Witnesses, they'll say, no, right? But all these groups, these different groups, they'll come at us, for I'm talking about all different religions, and they're coming in agreement to come against us, okay? But we say that all of these religions are fakes and phonies, okay? And we not siding with them if you ain't teaching the truth the right way, then oh well. We're not going to force it down your throat, okay? Because this ain't for everybody, right? It says a common Christian framework is ceremonial / sacrificial laws, animal sacrifices, temple rituals, priesthood regulations were fulfilled in Yahweh Shah. Civil national laws tied to ancient Israel as a nation state are not binding on modern Christians. Moral laws are still viewed as binding principles. Okay, that is why many Christians will still condemn theft, murder, adultery, and sexual immorality while not keeping things like animal sacrifice or certain purity regulations, right? And like, for example, the purity regulations, right? A woman is supposed to be, when she comes on her monthly, she's supposed to be set apart for 7 days. Okay, everything should be considered unclean, right? Did that change, or did man change that? Okay, you got to understand that. Okay, the woman, once the Lord, came on the scene, right? He went up, he got crucified, right? Did woman period start going away? Now you fast forward to today, right, with feminism and everything like that. These women be working and everything like that while they on that, that cycle. Okay? All the emotional dysregulation that's going on right now. Okay? It says, so yeah, that was a purity thing. Okay? It says that is why many, we already read that. It says, on the question of multiple wives, the Old Testament contained examples of men with multiple wives. Abraham, Jacob, David, Solomon, right? And a lot of people are like, they just like pointing to the bad, which they would try to say, well, here go right here. It says some Christians argue the Bible tolerated polygyny without presenting it as the ideal, right? They'll say, well, look at how it worked out for Solomon, right? Look at how it worked out for Jacob. Look how it worked out for a lot of men that, were Israelites and they was blessed. The Lord told King David, that, if you wanted more, I give you more. Okay? And a lot of people can't comprehend that. Now we trying to sit up here and say that, a man should, have, wives lined up and everything like that. No. Okay? But that law didn't go anywhere. Okay? And if a man does have multiple wives, okay, that didn't, the Lord didn't change that. Okay? In fact, that would have, made it worse for a lot of people, back then. Okay? Because where if somebody did have multiple wives and then now you just got to let your wives go, right? You let your wives go, you got 10 wives, and then it's you gotta let this wife go. You gotta let 9 of your wives go. Now your wife, that used to be your woman, going to go pop the next, get popped by the next person, and it's like, that's committing, that's adultery. Okay, now we not, in that time, but hey, there's certain laws that, certain people just can't even comprehend. Okay? Like the law where if a man didn't have a child, okay, he didn't have a son to continue his name. Right? And the woman, didn't have a child for that man. Right? The next of kin, which is his brother, right? If he has a brother, he's supposed to, go into that woman and have a child. Okay? So that he can continue his seed, his lineage. Now, do people understand and comprehend the lineages and stuff like that today? No. Okay? Are we going to sit up here and condemn someone, that's a woman, that, was with someone and she ended up, leaving and didn't want to get with the brother? No, we're not going to do that. Okay? But we understand the purpose of why that law was written in there. Okay, so that man could come back through, reincarnation, regeneration. Okay, and we see the example of Judah's sons. Okay, who the Lord put to death because they didn't keep that law. That was like like he hated his brother. Okay, it says they usually point to passages like Genesis 2, the two shall become one flesh, and New Testament leadership qualifications, husband of one wife, and they don't even understand that, right? To argue monogamy became the standard expectation in the church age, right? And when you talk about, the husband of one wife, right? That means that you're not out here sharing wives with another person, okay? The woman's supposed to have one husband, yes, that's true, okay? But men aren't supposed to be having the same wife, okay? It says on the LGBT community, right? Many historically traditional Christian groups still teach that same-sex activity is sinful based on passages in Leviticus, Romans 1, and 1 Corinthians 6. But then they don't even understand why, it's considered a sin, okay? Why they shouldn't do it, okay? They don't understand the spiritual aspect of it, okay? And I remember, Christians used to, it used to be, or a person from that community isn't, able to, they was rebuking them people, but now they accept them, okay? And then, some of these Christian churches, right? If you found out that, your group, your church doesn't accept those members and they 501c3, they might take that church away, man. Okay, now churches done opened up the doors for that. It says many progressive churches reinterpret those passages and argue they refer to exploitation, idolatry, and abusive relationships rather than modern safe same-sex relationships. Okay, so they'll allow those people into their congregation. Okay, heck, you even got some Israelite groups that are saying that if a man was is that, I mean, we'll accept them. We don't accept those people. Okay, now if you come in, okay, and you you repent, from that wickedness, okay, you might have a opportunity to be saved, okay. But the LGBT, that still applies, man, because that's a wickedness. You spreading that wickedness. You gotta have other people to be a part of that community. You gotta a person that may be a trans, he could be a eunuch or whatever, who knows, okay. But a lot of those people that's in that community, they always want to check and see who else they can take down with them, okay, and it becomes spread like a poison, okay. So it says the real debate is usually which laws still apply. How should Old Testament laws be interpreted through the New Testament? Did the New Testament change practice or clarify original intent? Okay, and the Lord, he came on the scene to clarify the original intent, and that's what I've been speaking about through this lesson. Okay, what is the original intent behind those laws? Okay, why did he say a man should not wear mixed fabric? Okay, why did he say land Sabbath? Why did he say not eating certain foods. Okay? For one, the mixed fabric, when you wear clothes of the same fabric, right? It's a vibration that comes along with it. Okay? When you let the land Sabbath, when you let the land rest, you allow the earth to restore its nutrients, so your food is still plentiful. You let the earth get rest, then you move on to another location. Certain native tribes, they understand that. That's one of the reasons why we say that the Native Americans, they keep the land Sabbath, because they are the people of, they are Israelites. Okay? Certain foods that you're not supposed to eat. Okay? Crab, shrimp, lobster. Okay? They're meant to clean the earth, clean the sea, the waters. Okay? Pigs, for example, meant to clean the earth. Right? So, and then you are what you eat. So a lot of these people be filled with parasites and all different type of stuff. A lot of the food, one of the reasons why it's GMO is because the earth ain't at rest. Okay? So-called white man is not keeping that. That's one of the reasons why this place is not plentiful like that. Okay? Where are the fruit trees, man? People are supposed to be able to walk down the street, have see a apple tree, right? Banana, whatever, oranges, okay? And if he hungry, be able to eat it, okay? Or to be able to gather it and then, go trade it, And that was like a welfare system for our people. But is that done away with now? The only reason why it's done away with is because we're not living in the land of Israel, where we are the people, where we are in control of these things. We don't control our foods. Okay? We don't control the water. We pay for all these different things. Okay? It says, what laws in the Bible still apply according to GMS? Right? According to GMS, the laws of the Bible were not completely done away with. Right? They generally teach that the law was established for Israel and that believers should strive to keep the commandments to the best of their ability today, while recognizing that salvation ultimately comes through faith and mercy, not perfect law keeping and captivity. Okay? And we understand what happens when somebody doesn't keep the law, right? When you don't keep the law, you get judged. And this is one of the reasons why the Lord has these laws put in place, so that when the so-called white man gets judged for these laws, he can't say that he didn't know better. Okay? It says GMS commonly divides the law into categories based on whether they can realistically be kept today. It says examples of laws they teach still apply. Dietary laws: no pork, shrimp, crab, lobster, catfish, etc. Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14. Moral sex laws: no adultery. You ain't forced to go out here and sleep with the next man, woman. Okay? Now, we understand that a lot of these women, are not with their original man. These women, might have a child, multiple children. Can they repent? Yeah. Okay? It says no homosexuality, no incest, no bestiality, no rape. Leviticus 18 and 20. Right? And when you go into rape, right, we say that a father would have a daughter, right? And the daughter, there was laws on how this thing goes. if a father, back in ancient history, had a daughter and she was betrothed onto a man, and another man went in, onto that daughter, that man would get put to death. Okay? If he, just randomly just had sex with this woman and she cried out. If she didn't cry, they both get put to death. That's adultery. Okay? But let's say that man didn't have a daughter. Okay? And this man ended up getting with this woman, right? Without the father's permission. Now that man got to pay up more, and he can't put that woman away ever. Okay? Because that's bringing a shame onto that man's household. Okay? Because that father is owed a certain amount of money when it comes down to the laws on giving away a daughter. Okay? That helped out with the wealth of that family, that lineage. Okay? And when you look at the amount of money that a man, that went into a woman that wasn't betrothed without the father's permission, that man had to pay up a whole lot of money, man. Okay? So it was like, okay, you do this, man, you're taking a major risk. Okay? Of doing that. It costs you a whole lot of money, man. Okay? It says Sabbath and holy days, keeping the Sabbath, high holy days, feast from Leviticus 23. Not celebrating holidays they view as pagan, Christmas, Easter, Halloween, etc. Christians, they'll celebrate all that. And it's like, where you get that from? That's not even in the Bible. Okay, but you say that the laws is done away with, but you ain't keeping none of the laws inside of the Bible. You ain't keeping none of the holy days. You keeping stuff that's not even inside of it. You think that the Lord is dealing with you? It says grooming, dress laws, men not shaving the beard completely. Modesty standards, right? Deuteronomy 22:5 regarding cross-dressing. You ain't supposed to be wearing what a woman wears, or women ain't supposed to be wearing what a man wears. That's confusing. Okay? It says dietary blood laws, not eating blood, proper handling of food. Social, ethical laws, honoring your parents, no stealing, no murder, no witchcraft or sorcery, no idolatry. Christians are into idolatry. They're into all these different type of ways, and you trying to say that the Lord just came on the scene and just made it worse, and now you can do all these different things aside from probably no murder, okay, no stealing, but you can have a bloody steak if you want to, okay. You can cut off your beard completely if you want to, okay. Women don't have to worry about wearing men's pants because it's cool in Christianity. Okay? It says, at the same time, GMS teaches some laws cannot currently be fully performed because there is no functioning temple in Jerusalem. Okay? And we use the altar. The altar is, when we go out there on the highway and hedges. Okay? We're doing like the work of a priest. Okay? So it's spiritual to a certain extent with that. Okay? I said the Levitical priesthood is not operating. Okay, and the Lord, he wasn't a Levite, but he was a priest, right? Okay. So the Lord gave the understanding of what it actually meant to be a priest. Israel is in captivity, scattered, right? Modern governments prevent enforcement of biblical civil penalties. Right? So yeah, we can't put, flames to death. Okay? We can't put certain people to death, that go off. Okay? But do that mean that the Lord ain't, the ultimate judge of all these things? Because he said that these things, that you're not supposed to do these things. So when people say that, only God can judge me, he already judged the situation. So once you get judged, you can't say that you didn't know, okay, that you wasn't supposed to, be a murderer. Okay? You didn't know these things. You didn't know that you wasn't supposed to commit adultery. It's not people out here that's enforcing the laws right now. Okay, we just messengers and let you know that this was the standard and this is the penalty. And that penalty is still there if you continue to do those things, because the Lord will put you to death. Okay? He will go according to his laws that he said. Okay? It says, so they generally say laws tied to animal sacrifice, temple rituals, certain judicial punishments, national governance statutes cannot presently be carried out in full. Okay? They often use scriptures such as Matthew 5:17. Think not that I am come to destroy the law, right? And it says, or the prophets, I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill, right? And we're fulfilling this to give the complete understandings of what this actually means. Okay? Why certain things aren't, why you are able to do certain things and why you aren't able to do certain things. Okay? Clarity on the laws. Okay? Clarity on why we aren't able to keep them. Okay? Clarity on that the laws, we're not saved by the laws. Okay? We're saved by having faith in Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Okay? Because right now we can't keep all of them. Okay? And we got to have faith that the Lord is going to judge the world by his laws, by the things that are inside of his book. Okay? So it's not, that the laws is done away with, because he's still holding those as the standard of what you're supposed to do, if you are able to do it. Okay? Romans 3:31, it says, do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. Okay, so just because you have faith don't mean that you're supposed to just say, you know what, the heck with the laws. The Lord got me. The Lord knows my heart. Okay? You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to have that mindset. I believe it. It says, Baruch 4:1. I was going to get that earlier. It says, this is the book of the commandments of God. That it says, and the law that endureth forever. Okay, it says, GMS also commonly teaches that believers should rehearse the righteous acts and keep the laws to the best of their ability while awaiting the kingdom, where they believe the laws will be perfectly written in Israel's hearts, according to Jeremiah 31:31-33, and Hebrews 8:8. Okay, because Hebrews 8:8 is like, reciting what Jeremiah 31 says. Okay, so continuing on, okay, we're going to go into what we got here. Ephesians 2:11, right? It's Ephesians 2:11, right? It says, wherefore you remember that you being in times past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh, made by hands. Okay, it says that at that time you were without Yahushua, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope, and without Yahweh by Shem Yahushua in the world, right? And I remember when I was younger, personally, I'm talking about 12, 11 years old. I read the Bible, front to back. And I tried to, to keep the laws inside of the Bible, And I would catch flack from off of that. You know, family members would, what, you Muslim? Like, no, I'm not no Muslim. I believe in the Bible. You know, I've been catching that hell for my whole life. You know, you grow your beard out. A lot of people would compare me to that, and I'm like, no, I just believe in the Bible, man. Until I came into the knowledge that, hey, I'm an Israelite. Because I did have that question, of why are those people that call Israel so special? I was asking that question my whole life, 11 to 12 years old. Had a vision of Yahweh Shah, coming back, But I always had, that question of, those people in Israel, man, they special people, man. You can read the Bible all the way through and you can see that, See Israel everywhere. New Testament, Old Testament, until you actually, and I remember, before I came in, I was majorly depressed, man, but then, as soon as I found the truth, man, it was like, man, that depression is totally went away, because I have hope in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. Okay? Now, let's get this word, commonwealth. Okay? The word commonwealth, it says the administration of civil affairs, a state or commonwealth, citizenship, the rights of a citizen. Okay? The word citizenship, right? A commonwealth of Israel, right? A commonwealth is a traditional term for a political community or state founded for the common good rather than the benefit of a ruler. It generally refers to a free state, a republic, or a group of associated sovereign nations like the Commonwealth of Nations. It signifies a government in which people have a say, often emphasizing the welfare of the public. Okay? So we talk about the welfare system, right? All of these things that are inside of the scriptures, is meant for all Israel to be able to be prosperous. Okay? Not just one man, like you hit the lottery and then, you just being selfish and shit. You would, make sure that, I'm talking about life. If you had life-changing money, you make sure all your people were good. What did Yahweh Shah say to the rich man? Go and sell what you have and give to the poor. And he didn't want to do that because guess what? He was majorly wealthy. He didn't want to do that. He didn't want to give up his wealth. He was a law keeper. Okay? So this thing is it's deeper than just keeping the laws, man. It's about having faith. Do you really think that the Lord is going to protect you? Are you going to be able to have access to your fringes when you get locked up in captivity? Are you going to remember Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua and love him with all your heart? Okay, throughout whatever it is that you go through. You're going to be a man of your word, okay, with this vow that you said that you was going to serve the Lord. Okay? These are the things that, it's for the greater good of everybody. Okay? And if you aren't, down with the greater good for everybody, okay, then you would be found, on you're being destroyed. Okay? It's the clearest way that I could put it. Okay? Because it ain't gonna be no selfish, Israelites. The elect trying to fight, for a spot on the chariots, doing musical chairs with one another. They're not wanting to teach another brother that's sincere or asking, or not wanting to help out another brother if they're in need. Okay, and you got the world's goods. The Bible, it speaks clearly against that type of mindset. Even to how you conduct yourself. How are you conducting yourself, to how it affects other people. Okay? Is your ways being, tyrannical or the T word, terroristic, to other brothers. Now other brothers got to suffer because of your stupidity. So these things are put inside of the scriptures, for us to be able to be moral, and fear of Yahweh outside. If you go off, these are the repercussions. You eat this food, you end up dying. Hey, and now you eating this food that you're not supposed to eat, right? Or you get parasites, for example, right? You eat this food, now you talking about, you don't care about how the earth is. You just want to satisfy your taste glands. Okay? Or, you want to be oppressive and, somebody asks you for $20, but you saying, you know what, you got to give me $150 back. Nah, you're supposed to be, if I give this person $20, right, you're supposed to get the $20 back because you asked for it. Jake just be, they just say, you know what, it's $20. Come on, man, you gonna bitch over $20? It's the principle, bro. If it's 5 cents, if you say you're gonna do something, then do it. If you can't be a man of your word, you don't sow respect unto yourself. Okay? And therefore you are a danger to anybody else because you just looking at it like it's just a small thing. And that's very selfish. And that mindset is not going to get you anywhere. Okay? Because you don't fear the Lord with that mindset. Okay? So, I wanted to do this video, man. These laws that we follow, it's for the greater good for ourselves and for everybody, because that's what the Lord wants, Lord willing, this is edifying. I want to say shalom until next time.